It's always the new brand that creates something outstanding with their cases and launches something quite incredible, I do have to admit. Now, right here we have GameMax N80, and this is a full white build case as well. And you have it also in black. And it has two compartments. It literally has two compartments. The power supply shroud, where you have two hard drive cages, so you can place two 3.5-inch hard drives or two 2.5-inch SSDs, power supply, and cables, loads of cables. And then we have the second compartment right here that is placed everything else. And you have 2 centimeters of clearance from the power supply shroud to this part, giving you enough air intake for these already pre-installed three 120 fans. Now, those aren't the only ones, because this case comes packed with fans, so you only need the 3 ones on the top if you go with a 360 radiator. So we have one 120 at the back, and you can't go anything higher than that. And you have two 120 reverse blade. These ones are reversed as well. So two 120 reversed on the side. Basically, we have 6 addressable RGB fans that come with a specific connection. Unfortunately, they don't have a standard addressable RGB and PWM connector, but you have some sort of a hub at the back. They are already pre-connected at the back, and then out of that connection, out of that hub, you have a SATA cable, addressable RGB cable, and PWM cable that needs to be connected to your motherboard. It's okay, but the only solution here, the only problem here is, what if for some strange reason the hub stops working? Then you don't have the fans. But until that point, you're good to go with 6 fans, right? So let's start with what we have right here. We have the GameMax N80. We have their 1050 power supply, which I already covered prior, and I'll place the link for that at the end of this video. And we have their new AIO. This is IceBurg 360 AIO, which comes also in black and white. And the interesting part, it has mirror effect on the side and it has mirror effect on the bottom. But here's the cool thing. It has mirror effect here at the back and on the front. So you have 3 sides of mirror effect on each fan. The only problem is, each of those has a foil sticked all over it to cover up the plexiglass so it doesn't get damaged while in transport or scratched or whatever. So what does this mean? That means that you need to remove the middle fan to remove that foil from the middle fan and from the 2 side fans that is covered up, because the fans come pre-installed on the Iceberg, and yeah, that's the only downside. Then what we have other than that is you have an LCD screen, which is kind of quite cool, and it's fixed, so you can't change anything. You get into in their software, which isn't bloatware, and it doesn't really bug your system that much. You get all the information inside the software, and you get thermals and stuff like that. So why is it saying constantly 99 degrees? I'm here currently using Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, and I think it's mostly because this is a new platform and they didn't update their software for the new platform, even though all other software is recognizing the thermals correctly and everything is okay. AIDA64 and all the other apps that I use in general. This one might not be updated because the pump block top needs to be connected with 3-pin DC header for your motherboard for the speeds, and you have to connect USB 2.0 directly to your motherboard to be able to get the access to that information, right, for the thermals. So what we have here is nice small GameMax logo. It shows also the usage of the CPU, thermals of the CPU, and the pump speed. Or if you go with a CPU air cooler, it shows the speed of the fans. So that's quite cool, but those are the kicks that I'm, you know, kind of quite curious. So, but we'll get to the best part. Let's jump into the case. Now, this case, when I saw it for the first time, I was, wow, I was really impressed with the design and everything all together, how it looks, because let's be honest, it really does look good. And the tempered glass is so tightly curved. It's such a sharp angle at 90 degrees here on the front that it's outstanding. So I was quite curious how you remove this tempered glass, because I don't see literally any screws here on the sides, not here, only 2 here on the side, but I was looking at the main panel, so I was like, okay, that doesn't have to do anything with tempered glass. You have 2 here behind the power supply shroud, so again, nothing to do with tempered glass. So I was like, how am I going to remove this tempered glass, right? So here's the cool thing. They have a rail right here. It's not an actual rail where it slides, but it kind of slides. Let's put it this way, right? And you have two hinges. Well, not an actual hinge where it pops open and, like doors, but you have two extrusions from the metal that slide into the main chassis and then just lock into position. And everything that holds this tempered glass are two pegs on the right side on the front part of the tempered glass. That's it. So you just need to pop out those two pegs, slide it a bit, lift it up, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Quite outstanding, I do have to admit, and really loving the design. Quite easy to remove it. When we're talking about the back panel, now that's another thing. We have two pegs here on the top, but you do have two thumb screws here at the back. And they are actual thumb screws in terms of you can actually untie them with your thumb right out of the factory. And then when we access the back part, you have two additional thumb screws here at the back. The same thing, use your thumb, open it, and you have to open the back plate that covers up the whole back part where the cables are. Now, when doing this build, I was doing the cable management entirely from scratch, because the initial cable management, I personally don't love it. Even though the cables are tied up, I really wanted to go with something extra here because we are having an outstanding case, and I always get extra into details when we have a special case on a review. So I do all of that. I put the GPU in, I put the 12V HPWR. I'm like, where I'm gonna push that cable, right? Because the motherboard is laying really flat, really close to the bottom. But don't worry, you can push all the cables that you need from the back connect openings. So what does this mean? If you go with a regular motherboard, you can push addressable RGB headers, PWM, even the front panel jack, which is pre-connected already. You have all those small jacks connected into one, which is outstanding, of course. So you can push it beneath the motherboard, but you can't push a GPU cable. So I said, okay, we have an opening right beneath those side fans. I'm going to push over there, push the cables over there, and just reroute them at the back. Quite nice, tidy, still looking good. And then I place that huge back panel that covers up the whole cables, and guess what they did? They place a cover that covers up that specific hole, so you can't push the cables over there. So what you have to do is push the 12V HPWR cable through the side grommets, through the side hole basically, and it doesn't look that tidy as I expected it to be. So it would be much, of course you can't create a waterfall effect because you won't have airflow here for the fans, and you'll see a cable here running through the bottom. That doesn't look nice. But regardless of that, okay, I'll just go through that. You can just use a Dremel tool and cut that part out to make an access for your cables additionally, because it doesn't create any additional, let's put it this way, airflow or air circulation or anything similar to that, right? So it doesn't matter if it's there or it isn't. Maybe it's just to cover up the whole segment of the cable management at the back. For the cable management in general, we have up to 3 centimeters of, I think maybe even 4 centimeters, 3.5, let's put it 3.5 centimeters of clearance for the back connectors. So you can do literally all the cable management that you need to do at the back, including you can place two 2.5-inch SSDs behind the motherboard. Discussing the dust filters, what we have right here is, well, basically one under the power supply shroud. We have one magnetic on top, but you do have to remove this top panel because you can't access the magnetic dust filter even through these holes. Maybe you could somehow lift it up. I don't know. I haven't tried, honestly, because there are some certain holes here, but maybe with a flat screwdriver and then just pop it out. And you have a dust filter on the back side of these two side fans. So you're good to go. You're covered for the dust. That's really nice and solid. Now for the motherboard form factor, it supports ATX, M-ATX and ITX with support of back connect. For the I/O port, we have a power on button, we have 3.5mm combo jack, we have one USB 3.0 and we have one USB Type-C Gen 2. For the configuration of the fans, you can go at top with 3 120 or 2 140, rear 1 120. Motherboard side, so the left side, we have 2 120, and the power supply shroud cover 3 120. For the radiator support, Motherboard side, you can go with 120 or 240. On the top, you can go up to 360, and on the rear, you can go with 120. GPU card length up to 450 millimeters, CPU cooler height 175 millimeters, and cable management depth is actually 32, not 35 millimeters. So, okay, I was close. I was really close. But the concept of this case is really outstanding. I'm really digging the whole design. It's really something different. Haven't seen. Maybe there are some cases which I didn't notice, maybe, or anything similar to that. But the whole visual concept of this case is really appealing, and I have to admit that. It's minimalism in terms of the design, in terms of the visual aspect, but giving that second compartment, and it's not that tacky. It's not that tacky. It's definitely not tacky. The cool thing, of course, and we did had those cases, the rims on the tempered glass are white, in white. And for the black, they're black. And since I'm talking about tempered glass, if you remember my Jonesbow TK2 review, now in that scenario, I noticed there is a foil. And I always remove it no matter what the case is. So I started peeling off the TK2 foil, right? Because it wasn't cut straight, it was looking really hideous, and I wanted to remove it, of course, because why should I keep something that doesn't look perfectly aligned? After all, after seeing this case, I totally realized that it wasn't a burnt-in standard foil that protects it only. It was a PPF foil that protects it from breaking so it doesn't shatter or similar stuff like that, right? Well, that wasn't entirely my fault because, after all, I do have to say the foil here on the edges on the TK2 was a total disaster because it wasn't cut straight. And then I noticed here we don't have that in terms of standard foil that I peel off constantly. Here we have a PPF foil or protective foil, whatever you want to call it, which is cut perfectly straight on all edges. So I wanted to give you that information because I encountered that on Jonesbow TK2 and I encountered it here, but I barely noticed it because it's perfectly aligned. So it's easy to clean. It's definitely easy to clean because I already had my fingerprints all over the tempered glass while figuring out how to remove it and all the other stuff. But yeah, quite cool. I do have to say, I'm really digging the whole design again. But the main thing is what I wanted to give you an idea, of course, are the benchmarks, because I said some not bad things or negative things or cons about the AIO. I'm really digging the AIO. Okay, it has a fixed LCD screen, you can't change much. But let's be honest, we had other coolers that had digital screen and you can't change much as well. So yeah, there's that. Now let's check out the GameMax N80 with Zotac RTX 4070 Ti Super Trinity OC, and we have the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K on Z890 Steel Legend from ASRock. So AIDA64 Extreme Edition CPU went up to 80 degrees, and the clock speed was 5300 megahertz, while the GPU went up to 73 degrees. Now, for the GPU, since this is actually the first time I actually bought this card specifically for white builds, well, unfortunately, I couldn't find 4080 Super, so there's that. But this is the first time I'm using this card. So this, compared to my PNY Accelerate card, that is also 4070 Ti Super, that card went up to maximum 67 or 68, I think. This is already at 73. So we need to take that into consideration as well because of the chassis. Because the PNY was much thicker, it was 3 slot, this one is 2 slot, 2.5 slot, something like that, right? So until I get this GPU in another build, I can't say precisely if these thermals for this GPU are high or somewhere in the middle or low. But you'll stay tuned and you'll see in future white builds that I'll be using this card and you'll be able to see it. Then we go to Cinebench, right? And the thermals went up to 80 degrees again. Eventually, in a couple of benchmarks went up to 81, but the clock speed is again 5300 megahertz. And when we compare it to the past, Cinebench clock speed was 54 for Ultra 9 285K. But then we go to Cinebench scores actually, and the first one is 40,006. The second one is 39,781, and then it goes up again above 40. 39,500, and then it stays above 40,000, and even goes up to 40,749. So first of all, on this board, the score for the processor went up higher than in my original benchmarks on Z890 Tomahawk Wi-Fi. I don't know if it's about motherboard or is it about cooling. Maybe it's about cooling, who knows. I'll check that out later on. But regardless, the thermals are okay because the AIO simply works. The pump speed is at 2580 RPMs, so that's quite solid, and it's not loud. The pump isn't loud. The fans are still solid. And of course, if you crank up any fan at 100%, if they aren't limited at 25 decibels, you're gonna hear them. And yeah, quite outstanding performance. Now, taking everything into consideration, even removing that flaw when we're talking about the cable for the GPU and how it passes through the case, I'll just look through it. I don't care. You can use the Dremel, as I said, you can use the Dremel, cut it out, whatever. Somebody didn't thought that one through, but I won't take a grudge for it because everything else on this case is outstanding, simply is, and it looks outstanding. Comes with 6 fans, not to mention the hub. Okay, going to disregard that. Not going to disregard much, but still going to stick to my point, to what I wanted to say, and I gave you all the information you need. PC Crazy Creative badge because of the design, because of the how you remove the tempered glass, how you remove the top panel, and the double compartment chassis design, and everything all together is just wow. Just wow. Thumbs up to GameMax. And yeah, I'm kind of, you know, still in wow effect. So sorry for too much how do you say it, too much impressions about it, but yeah, it is what it is. So guys, what else I can say is that if you want to create something similar to this, or if you want to check out GameMax products, I'll put the links for the GameMax N80 black and white, IceBurg 360 black and white as well. I think you also have it in 240, but I'll check that out later and leave the links eventually if there is. And of course, their GameMax power supply, 1050 watts, so you could pair it up because that power supply is also in white, if you remember. And as I stated at the end of this video, click on the end screen because you'll have the dedicated video for the power supply to check it out and see more information about that. And that's all there is to it, guys. Nice case, without a doubt. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and see you tomorrow in a new one. Bye bye.